So slope-intercept form is going to be y equals mx plus b. X and y are going to be variables, but m is going to be a number. M is going to be the slope. And then b over here is going to be the y-intercept. Now, to find slope, which is m, you can use two different formulas. You can use the slope formula from 2 points. That's going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're always subtracting the y's on top, and we're subtracting the x's on the bottom. That's always going to be the case. Another way you can find slope from 2 points would be rise over run. But for the most part today, we're going to be concentrating on this one. This one says if you have two different points, let's say x1, y1, that'll be my first point. And then let's say you had a second point, x2, y2. Then you can take all four of these numbers that are here and you can put them in this formula. So this is the one that we're going to be looking at today. We're going to be doing this in 3 different steps. The first step that we're going to do is we're going to find the slope, m. After that, we're going to find the y-intercept, also known as b. And then we're going to write our equation in slope-intercept form. So I'm going to say write equation y equals mx plus b. So those are the 3 steps that we're going to be following today. We're always going to be finding the slope first. Then we're going to find the y-intercept, and then we have to write out our equation as y equals mx plus b. Let's try the first one on the notes. So the first one that I have is I want to find the line that goes through 2 points. Those 2 points are going to be 0, 0 and 4, 4. So I'm given these 2 points, and what I want to do first is I want to find the slope. The slope is going to be subtracting the y's on the top, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these numbers and put them in this formula. The first thing I want to do is label my ordered pairs. So this would be the first x coordinate. This would be the first y coordinate. The x value always comes first. This will be my second x value, and this will be my second y value. So the first point is always going to get 1s, and the second point is always going to get 2s. So let's go ahead and put these numbers into this formula. y2 is going to be 4. y1 is going to be 0. So on top, I'm going to have 4 minus 0. And then at the bottom, I need the x values. My x values are going to be x2, which is 4, minus my first x value, which is 0 right here. On top, I have 4 minus 0. That's going to give me 4. On the bottom, I also have 4 minus 0. That's going to give me 4. And now I can divide the top by the bottom. 4 divided by 4 is positive 1. So 1 is going to be my slope for this line. And now that I know what the slope is, I can figure out what the y-intercept is, which is going to be b. The way that I do that is I use y equals mx plus b. Y equals mx plus b. We have our slope, so my m is going to be 1. I need an x value and a y value. So what's my x value? We can use this point or this point. Doesn't matter which one we choose. I'm going to choose this one. Notice that my x value is 4. So in here for x, I'm going to put 4. And then notice that my y value right here is also 4. So I'm going to let this y value be 4. And now I can figure out what b is. So all I did was I substituted one of the points for my x and my y. 1 times 4 is going to give me 4. Everything else stays the same. And now to get b by itself, I need to subtract 4 from both sides. And when I do that, I get 4 minus 4 is 0. So b is going to be equal to 0. So now I know my slope, which is 1. I know my y-intercept, which is 0. And now I can write my answer as y equals mx plus b. So my slope is going to be 1, so I'm going to get 1x. My b value is going to be 0, so I'm going to have plus 0. And if I'm adding 0, I don't really need that. I just need this term right here, y equals x. That's going to be my answer. Okay, so let's take a look at what that looks like when we graph it. I'm going to go to Desmos, and I'm going to type in the answer that I just got, y equals x. And then I get this line right there. So what 2 points does this line have to go through? Well, going back to my problem right here, it's got to go through 0, 0, and 4, 4. So let's type those in. I'm going to type in the ordered pair 0, 0, and 4, 4. And what you'll notice is these 2 points are going to appear as red and blue dots. So we have the line that goes through those 2 points. Let's try another one like that. Let's do number 2. So number 2 says we have 2 points, 3, negative 5. And 0, negative 3. So for these 2 points, what I want to use is the slope formula. I know that this is going to be x1, y1, and this is going to be x2, y2. So putting that inside the slope formula, I need to subtract the y's on top and subtract the x's on the bottom. So what that's going to look like is it's going to be -3 minus -5 on top. And then on the bottom, I'm subtracting the x's, so I'm going to have 0 minus 3. So on the top, I have -3 minus -5. That's the same thing as -3 plus 5. That's going to give me 2. In the denominator, I have 0 minus 3, and that's going to give me -3. So this is going to be my slope, -2/3. So this line has a negative slope. So now that I have the slope, I can figure out what the y-intercept is. I just need to use y equals mx plus b. Now for this, I'm going to use the first point, 3, -5. My y value is -5. My slope is going to be -2/3. And my x value for this ordered pair is +3. So I'm going to put the +3 right here. I'm going to add b at the end because I'm not really sure what that is yet. But we're about to figure out what that is. So now that I know that my slope is -2/3, I plug that into my slope-intercept form. And now I can multiply -2/3 by 3. When I do that, the 3's are going to cancel out, only leaving me with a -2. So I get -5 is equal to -2 plus b. Now what I have to do is get b by itself, which means I have to get rid of this -2. I can do that by adding 2 to both sides. So I'm going to add 2 to both sides. When that happens, the -2 and the +2 are going to cancel out, leaving me with just a b, my y-intercept, right? On the other side of the equal sign, I'm going to have -5 plus 2. That's -3. That's going to be my y-intercept. So now that I know my slope and I know my y-intercept, I can write out my answer as -2/3 x minus 3. That's going to be my line. And I'll let you graph that to verify that it does go through those 2 points. So the first step is always to find out what the slope is. And we can do that by the slope formula. Once we have our slope, we have enough information now to figure out what the y-intercept is, what b is. And then once we know what b is, we can write out our answer as y equals mx plus b. Okay, the last one that I'm going to do on the notes is number 3. So let's go ahead and try that. Number 3. 3 says this line is going to go through 2 different points. We have -5, -2. That's going to be my first ordered pair. My second ordered pair is going to be 1, 2. So first, let's go ahead and label these points. This is going to be my first x value. This is going to be my first y value. the x value always comes first. This is going to be my second x value. This is going to be my second y value. So now I know enough information to do the slope formula. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let's figure out what the slope of this line is going to be. I'm going to subtract the y's on top. I'm going to have 2 minus negative 2. Two minus negative 2. In the denominator, I'm going to have x2 minus x1. So that's going to be 1 minus negative 5. 1 minus negative 5. So now the top of the fraction, I have a double negative. A double negative is the same thing as a positive, right? So this is actually 2 plus 2. That's going to give me 4. In the denominator, I have 1 minus negative 5. That's also a double negative. So I can write that as 1 plus 5, which is 6. 4 over 6 is a good fraction to have, but we can actually reduce this down by dividing the top by 2 and dividing the bottom by 2. And I get 2/3 as my slope. So now I know what my slope is. And now I'm ready to find B, my y-intercept. To do this, I'm going to use our familiar equation y equals mx plus b. For this example, I can either use the first point or the second point. It doesn't matter which one I choose. So I'm going to choose the easiest one, this second point right here. What's my y value for this point? It's going to be 2. So I'm going to let y be 2. Now I need to know what my m value is. We found m over here. It's 2/3. Next, I need to know what my x value is. My x value always comes first in an ordered pair. That's going to be the positive 1. So I'll put that beside m. And then the plus b, I'm not sure what that is yet, but we're about to figure out what that is. 2/3 times 1 is going to give me 2/3. And now to get b by itself, I'm going to have to subtract 2/3 from both sides. So I'm going to subtract 2/3 on this side, but I'm also going to subtract 2/3 on this side. So what happens here is the 2/3 are going to cancel each other out. I'm left with a b on the right-hand side. On the left side, I have 2 minus 2/3. I could do this on a calculator. So I'm going to type in 2 minus 2/3 to see what I get. And it gives me 1.3 repeating. If I click on this, it's not giving me a fraction. But then if I click on this right here under the 2 icon, it's going to give me 4/3. So 4/3 is going to be my b value. B equals 4/3. So now I know what m is, and I also know what b is. So now I can write out my equation as y equals mx plus b. So let me choose red this time. I need to write out my equation as y equals mx plus b. My m is going to be 2/3 from right here. So 2/3 x plus b. What is b? It's going to be 4/3. And now I'm done. That's going to be the equation of my line. So for each one of these problems, we're finding the slope first from the slope formula. Then we're finding out what b is. Once we do that, we have enough information to write down our line. Let's go ahead and move on to the classwork. Okay, so on your Chromebook, it's going to be under modules and it's going to be under Friday. We're going to try the classwork for this one. Let's do number 1 together. So number 1 says our line is going to go through 2 points, 2, -1, and -3, 0. What I want to do first is I want to figure out what the slope is. And to do that, we're going to use the slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So our y values are going to be 0 and -1. So I get 0 minus -1. On the bottom, I need to subtract my x values. My x values are going to be -3 and +2. So now on top, I have 0 minus -1. That's going to be a +1. In the denominator, I have -3 minus 2. That's going to be -5. So -1/5 is going to be my slope. So now I know what the slope of this line is, and I can use y equals mx plus b to figure out what b is. So what is my y value? I'm going to use this second point right here. For this point, my y value is 0. My m is going to be -1/5. And my x value from this ordered pair is going to be -3. I don't know what b is yet, so I'm going to leave that as a variable for now. When I multiply these two numbers together, I'm going to get +3 over 5 plus b. So then if I subtract 3/5 from both sides, I'm going to get b is equal to -3/5. That's going to be my y-intercept. So now that I know what b is and I know what m is, I can write out my answer as y equals mx plus b. The m is going to be -1/5, and the b is going to be -3/5. Okay, let's try number 2 together. And this will be the last one we do on the classwork. I'm given 2 points, -3, -2, and 5, 3. So for the slope formula, I'm going to subtract the y values on top. That's going to be 3 minus negative 2. And then on the bottom of the fraction, I'm going to subtract the x values. That's going to be 5 minus negative 3. On the top, I have a double negative. So that's going to be 3 plus 2, which is 5. On the bottom, I also have a double negative. That's going to be 5 plus 3, which is 8. So now I've got my slope, 5 over 8. Next, we're going to find b. To do this, I'm going to use m, and I'm going to use the second point right here. It actually doesn't matter which point that you choose, you just need to choose one of them. So my y value is a 3. My m is the slope, which is 5 over 8. My x value is also going to be 5 from this point right there. And I don't know what b is yet. Okay. 5 over 8 times 5. 5 times 5 is 25. And I'm going to leave the 8 in the denominator. So now to get b by itself, I need to subtract 25 over 8 from both sides. Let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to subtract 25 over 8 on both sides. So what's 3 minus 25 over 8? Let's do that in our calculator. So I'm going to have 3 minus 25 over 8. Make sure the top is 25 and the bottom is 8. And I get for my answer negative 1 over 8. Negative 1 over 8. So this is going to be my y-intercept, b. Now that I know what these two numbers are, m and b, I can write out my answer in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. My m is going to be 5/8. And my b is going to be negative 1 over 8. And I'm done. So now let's check our answer to make sure that this line goes through those 2 points. I'm going to go over to Desmos and I'm going to type my line in. Y equals 5 over 8 times x minus 1 over 8. And I get this purple line right here. I'm going to zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. So this line has a y-intercept of negative 1/8, and it has an x-intercept of 1/5. Now let's type in the 2 points that it gave us. Negative 3, negative 2. This is going to be a black point. I can't see it right now, so I'm going to zoom out. And there it is, right on the line, as we predicted. The second point is going to be 5, 3. Let's type that in. This should be a red point. I can't see it yet, so I'm going to zoom out a little bit more. And there it is. right on the line as we predicted. So now go ahead and try the last date on the classwork. What's going to be due on Sunday? Let's talk about it. Your assignment from Monday, which was writing lines from a slope and a point. Writing lines from slope and a point. And today's classwork, Wednesday, writing lines from 2 points. Okay, with that, I have nothing left to cover, so class dismissed. I will see you on Monday.